You're listening to Trainual's SMB Consulting Show with Bradford Jones.
Hey everyone, my name is Bradford. I'm the Implementation Experience Manager here at Trainual. I'm not here at Trainual, currently remote. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I'm here with Reiscreen. He is with Trailblaze Partners in Vancouver, British Columbia. He is one of our certified partners here at Trainual. We're so excited, if you haven't met him yet, to be able to meet him through this video. And really what today is we're going to talk through what's going on in the world. So everything's changing by the day. It's March 31st. The only reason I give a day is because it's important to know that, because literally the news changes every day. But as we know, around the world, we have a global pandemic. And so business has changed a lot in the last 14 to 21 days for sure. So we've got Reis with us to talk today about what's going on in his world and his clients' world. And Reis, thank you so much for being with us today. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, so, we're fully remote at Trainual right now. I'm based in Tennessee personally. So I'm always a little bit remote, but all of our staff there in Scottsdale is working remote. So I'm here in my kitchen today. I see you're at your house and all that stuff. So just tell me what the last couple of weeks has been like for you in your business.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a little slower than usual. Less proposals closing, less new proposals going out. But it's been a lot of fun. Some real challenges to work on with our team members, and it's hard seeing friends struggling through this. I got a good friend who has a couple of friends and partners who have 4 or 5 large scale restaurants in Toronto, down on King West. Great restaurants. I'll give them a plug. Bar is one of my favorites. But seeing them close down and deal with all the stuff that they're dealing with right now, it's really hard to watch. And I think one of the hardest parts for me personally is I'm super happy right now. Like, I'm feeling really good. I've gotten through a ton of important work that's not urgent that I've been meaning to get through for ages. I don't have a marketing background. I started as an independent consultant, and then we launched Trailblaze Partners about 18 months into that independent. And so I've spent the last 2.5 years trying to figure out how to fucking market this business. Sorry, I swear, but how to market this business. And I feel like just in the last week, I've had a ton of breakthroughs. We've revisited the brand strategy, and it's tight. And I'm super excited to go and execute against it and start building some new service offerings within that brand strategy. So it's this holy shit, the world is going crazy, and I'm seeing friends struggle and lose their businesses. And man, I'm feeling really good, because I think where my business is positioned really well to come out the other side of this stronger. Because, I honestly believe this, the fundamentals of business haven't changed. I think that right now everything feels different. I have a mentor back home in Australia who he runs the Australasia area for a company called TCC Global. They're a customer experience consulting company, and he's been through a few of these. He's been around longer than I have, and he was saying, September 11 felt the same. The 87 crash felt the same. Holy shit, business has changed forever. Everything's going to be different forever. And he said it wasn't. It comes back. That's the only thing certain is it's going to come back, and the fundamentals of good business haven't changed. You have a great product, who you're selling it to, get it in front of them. Your business is going to do okay. It's just a matter of, can you come out the other side of this and survive what's going on right now?
Yeah, it's here in the U.S. You mentioned some of the things there, and one of the things is the country has always kind of come out unified from that. So I'm looking forward to that personally, without discussing politics, or anything like that. So it's unfortunate that it takes that, but I think we may see that kind of on the other side of this, and hopefully it's in weeks instead of months or years. But we'll see.
Yeah, from that. Yeah. I mean, undoubtedly the economic impact is going to be long. But I hope that this lockdown ends sooner rather than later. I'm always happy to talk politics, so you don't have to keep that out of the conversation if you don't want to. I'm not one to get offended by anything you're going to say politically. But yeah, I've spent a lot of time in the States. I've been to at least 45, 50 US cities over the last 6 or 7 years. I love the US. I think it's an amazing country. I love the variety. You go to one excuse the nails, daughter. But you go from city to city or state to state, and it's just so different, which I think is a strength for you guys. But yeah, it's been so divided down there for the last few years. It would be really nice to see you be able to rally behind a cause.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've talked about what you're doing kind of internally in your business, and how you've had a lot of time to work with that. What tools are you using in your business, and what tools may you recommend to some people who were in person and on site most of the time, but now have gone remote? What are some tools you're using and you like?
Yeah, so we actually have a full day session teaching teams how to work remotely. We've been doing it for a couple of years now, and prior to this, when it was a choice, and there's some great tools out there, and they get better all the time. What we're using right now is one of my favorites, Zoom. There's a couple of others out there as well. I should have brought my notes, but there's some that allow you to kind of track who's talking the most, and give you kind of status reports, which is great for remote sales. As a salesperson, you want to be talking less, even though I'm doing all the talking now. And so there's some really good tools out there for that. I think like Google Drive or like the Office version of in the cloud, like anything you can get into the cloud, get off your local, for so many reasons. But just being able to collaborate on a single document, and from a document control and version control perspective, if you can work in those. I love Drive. Personally, that one's my favorite. I think it's got everything you need. You've got Google Keep, which you can keep your notes up next to your inbox, and like Gmail's solid, search function's super good. So, I think that whole Google suite, if you're going to be choosing anything, is the one I'd be choosing. And then, outside of that, it's not rocket science. Like, I think a lot of people try to overcomplicate it. Like, working remotely is just like working next to somebody. There's a couple of extra tools and tactics that you need. But the biggest difference I find is you need to be deliberate. You need to be deliberate in the way that you communicate. You need to be more deliberate in the way that you coach. All of those little micro moments that happen naturally. You're getting up for a coffee, you walk past Susie. Susie's like, "Oh, hey, did you finish that thing?" You're like, "Oh, no, I didn't. Yeah, I'll get it to you right now," or like whatever. Those types of little conversations don't just happen anymore. And so you really have to create those. There's one tactic that I talk about. I mentioned it just briefly. I call it micro moments. And I noticed this when I was leading operations for You Move Me, and we had at the peak of the summer just under 1,000 people in that business: movers, crew leaders, trainers, general managers, franchise partners, all that sort of stuff. And what I noticed that I'd never noticed before was everything I said had more weight, because I might run into someone once in a year. Whereas before that, I was running into them fairly regularly. Most of my team was in the same building as me, or they were, at the very least, I was in Vancouver and they were in Toronto, and I'd speak to them a couple of times a day. Now it's maybe once a year. And so I needed to make sure that those micro moments really counted. And I always did that by being really consistent with my messaging, making sure it was the same every single time. If I only got one conversation, I made sure I hit one point. I made sure that point was the most important thing I could possibly talk about. So it was my highest priority communication item. And I also, I like variety. I think a lot of people out there do too. I know not everybody does, but variety is something that's important to me. And so I quickly get sick of saying the same thing over and over again. So I knew that if I wasn't sick of saying something and it was important to me, then I wasn't saying it enough. And so I've kind of followed those 3 rules for communication. And I think that applies really well to remote leadership. Because you have just far less of those moments. You need to be far more deliberate with how you communicate.
Yeah, it's amazing insight, because we did something similar, because all of our quote unquote silly questions are now documented in our Slack. And so instead of just asking them, like you mentioned on the way to get coffee, they're now documented. So we're working pretty hard internally to try to fill the gaps on where people had questions or have questions right now to do that. So I think that's phenomenal advice from that perspective. And I loved what you said about keeping it simple. You don't need to add 40 tools to make this work, right? At all. It doesn't need to be like that. It just needs to be simple and consistent, right? And so you said a lot of those things. So I think that was an amazing thing to say. To that point, this is a time where people their businesses have changed so much. What way could you see SMBs using this as an opportunity and a way for them to come out on the other side with their business in a better position than it could be. Obviously, there's all different types of businesses. Some require you to be in person, like you and I were discussing with hospitality before we got on this call and things like that. But what are some things that you would recommend for an SMB to be able to see this issue as an opportunity?
Yeah, that's a great question. I know, and you and I were talking about this before the call, there's a lot of hesitance around messaging on this because people, you want to be sensitive and lead with empathy. And, those are definitely things that are important to me as well. I think that it depends on where your business is at, what you're trying to do. Obviously, I look at things through an operational lens. That's my background, even though I said I'm working on some marketing projects. For me, if operations are a weakness for you, if onboarding lots of people quickly, training people, getting good results, holding people accountable, measurement, all of those things that go into a really good operating structure. If there's any weakness in those, now's the time to strengthen them. I have a couple of clients that, for a couple of weeks there, they were panicking and panicking in the right ways. It's got some negative connotations there, but, calling vendors, pushing out payments, doing all that sort of stuff to shore up their cash flow. So they've got that 3 to 6 month runway and they can make sure they get out the other side of this. If you've done those things and you've shored up your runway and you've got some time on your hands, then it's document. Any processes that you haven't documented in the past, it's, tweak. If you've got a dashboard that, you've been meaning to work on or you think you could improve that dashboard. It's all of that important but not urgent work that, gets pushed to the side often.
Yeah, it's great advice because we always hear so many times that time is the restraint for investing in our business, right? And this is one time where you're going to have time, unfortunately, forced.
And unfortunately with some not so great stuff going on in the world. But yeah, to your point, I've never seen this. I mean, have you ever seen a pause on the entire world? I got to tell you, for the last year, I've been needing a pause, and I can imagine there's a few other people out there. The economy's been burning white hot for a long time and everybody's just been trying to keep up with the growth. And, there's a ton of pain that comes along with this sort of thing. And so, I want to make sure that there's felt empathy for that, but to have a pause is super nice. I know for me personally, I've been able to spend more time with my kids than I've spent before. I've been home for more weeks straight than I've been home for in the last 7 years. I've been on the road a lot, and I'm sure there's others out there that are the same. It's just trying to enjoy those small things and fill up that tank for when the work comes back.
Yeah, absolutely. Same here. I hadn't been on an airplane in 8 weeks or something like that. And that's the longest time I've gone, I think, in 4 or 5 years. So that's been a big change. I was getting to know all the TSA agents and gate agents and stuff at my airport. They may not remember who I am when I come back.
Yeah, exactly. My suitcase is going to be lonely.
Hey, to that point, I mean, is there anything in your network or your clients that you've seen that's been surprising for you, or a feel-good story or anything like this? Because you're right, there's a lot going on that's negative in the world and there's so much concern, but I really enjoy hearing those stories and sharing those stories. So is there anything that's been surprising for you in your network?
Yeah, there is. And frankly, it shouldn't have been a surprise because the companies that we work with, everything we do is driven by culture and employee experience. We really believe that culture precedes performance. And so the companies we tend to work with believe that same thing, and they really invest heavily in their people. And so for me, the biggest and nicest surprise has been just how many of our clients, friends who are entrepreneurs, everyone in our network are working so hard to keep people paid, keep them going, and take care of them and their families. That has been, the very first thing that people want to talk about. When all of this started to hit seriously a couple of weeks ago, I was on a lot of those calls of what do we do? How do we attack this? Those war room calls. Literally 9 out of 10 times, the very first consideration was, how do we take care of our people? How do we take care of our employees and make sure that they're okay and they come out the other side of this okay? After that, it was some business considerations, but that was a really nice surprise to see those priorities being in the right place.
Yeah, I agree completely. We're seeing a lot of messages come through, with Trainual, and they're like, "Hey, I'm trying to make payroll. What can we do?" And that's been amazing to see that as well, for sure. Yeah, it's like you said, it shouldn't be shocking, but it's been a great thing to see, for sure. Well, we want to be respectful of everybody's time, and so thanks so much for being with us. I would love for you to just tell everybody about your business and what you do and what services you provide, and you do provide for both Trainual users and then those outside of the Trainual network as well.
Yeah, great. So we're Trailblaze partners. We're based in Vancouver, BC. We work with entrepreneurial companies, and we're management consultants. We know there's some aversion there. We do culture consulting and operations consulting. We believe that culture precedes performance. And so we help companies deliver that. And specifically with Trainual, the reason we use it is because it fits so well into both of those buckets. To have a strong culture, you need people who know what to expect, know how to do their jobs effectively. You have defined processes, and you're building the right amount of systems and structure. And Trainual really helps our clients to do that, and we help our clients to document those processes and figure out all that stuff that's going on in their head, get it down in a way that makes sense, and turn it into something that other people can use.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's great. Well, we're so happy to have you as a part of the Trainual family, and working with our customers and all that. So, looking forward to speaking with you again in a more happy time of the world. But we appreciate all your insight. I got a lot of great information out of this, and I know our users will as well. So, Reis, thank you so much for your time, and I hope everything goes well for you in the coming weeks.
Yeah, right back at you, Bradford. Thanks, man.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to Trainual's SMB Consulting Show with Bradford Jones. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you'd like to learn more about Trainual and our certified consultants, head over to trainual.com.